Should you buy the OnePlus 8? Well, when I first started testing this phone 2 months ago, I may have been like, yeah, you totally should. But after 2 months of use, I think my answer is a little bit closer to that old Facebook status. It's complicated. Here's why. So this is the first year that OnePlus has announced 2 phones at the same time with 2 different price points and 2 different target markets. You have the OnePlus 8 starting at $699, and you have the OnePlus 8 Pro starting at $899. So I'm going to use the 8 Pro as a reference point for some of the points in this video, but I'll more thoroughly compare which one you should buy at the end of the video. But talking about the OnePlus 8, it starts out with a build that I think is pretty expected. It feels really high quality, and there's a certain thoughtfulness to it that most phones don't have. I definitely prefer its weight and footprint over the OnePlus 8 Pro. It also, just like the OnePlus 8 Pro, has the rebranded text on the back, which I think looks really nice, and it has a hole punch cutout in the top left of the display. More on the display soon. The model I have here is the Interstellar Glow, which means that it has higher end specs and a more fingerprint prone finish when compared to the green model. I kind of would have loved OnePlus to offer the same specs across both color options, because although on camera this often looks really hot with like the refracted light, in person, more often than not, it looks like a silver slab with a bunch of fingerprints on it. So it's not my favorite color choice, and I definitely prefer the green one. But if you want those extra specs, you gotta go with this color. Both models pack the curved display, which I think you probably know by now. I'm not a huge fan of when compared to flat displays. I just feel like although it looks aesthetically better, it's not worth the palm rejection issues and the potential durability issues. So I would love to see OnePlus next year go back to a flatter display. The actual display is the perfect size for me though. It combines being semi-one-handable with being big enough to enjoy content without longing for my tablet, so I'm a fan of it. And it also is a beautiful display and high refresh rate. So it is 90 Hz 1080p, which means on paper it's worse than the display on the 8 Pro, and it is. It has a lower PPI and lower refresh rate, but it's not a huge difference in real life. Like yes, things look sharper on the 8 Pro and things look a little bit smoother on the 8 Pro, but I really thoroughly enjoy the OnePlus 8 display. It is still one of my favorite displays on the market right now. And while I am one of those people that is a little bit bummed that there isn't the pop-up camera, the hole punch kind of naturally fades away as your eyes get a little bit more used to it, just like that. Thanks for that idea, Marquez. But I am like a really big fan of this display, even with that hole punch, so thumbs up from me on my end. And the specs powering that beautiful display are great. The base model has a Snapdragon 865 with 5G and 8 GB of RAM, but the model I have here has 12 GB of RAM, and it is by far one of the fastest phones, if not the fastest phone at this price point. And while the specs do play a major role in giving it that title, another thing that does play a major role is the software. Oxygen OS is just one of my favorite versions of Android, and they've knocked it out of the park this year. All the animations feel really fast, everything works the way I want it to, and they didn't change what was not broken. So I definitely prefer like the style. They didn't make an aesthetic choice that's a little polarizing like LG does. So I'm definitely a fan of Oxygen OS, and this phone definitely aligns with their slogan, fast and smooth. Another thing that aligns with that slogan is the camera app. It opens up so fast when you double click it, and you can easily take a photo, so a huge fan of that as well. But the actual images aren't amazing. So you've probably heard this in a OnePlus video before. It's going pretty well, the reviewer seems pretty psyched, but then they get to the camera and they say, but the camera, it's not flagship quality. And when I reviewed the 8 Pro, I didn't say that. This actually was a flagship camera because this phone is now flagship price, but the OnePlus 8 still has that same thing. The camera is not terrible at all, but it's just missing that little extra oomph that makes it flagship quality. Like there isn't one certain aspect that is horrible, but just overall, it's inferior to many of the flagships on the market. The primary 48 megapixel sensor is pretty good though. It's plagued by that same thin depth of field that we see on many phones, where if you get too close to a subject, only part of it is in focus, and then there's kind of like some focus fringing. So that is not ideal, but regular images look awesome. It also has a 16 megapixel ultra wide lens, which is great. You know, I'm a fan of the ultra wide. And it has a 2 megapixel macro lens because we're all asking for that. But I'm not like angry that that's here, I just don't actually think it's that useful. So after I tested out the A51, which has a 5 megapixel macro lens, I was like, okay, maybe I could see macro becoming a thing, but I just think that 2 megapixels is just too low resolution, so none of the images really look that detailed or sharp to me. And it also has some issues with exposure, so I often find that it overexposes different parts of the image. So after the novelty wears off, I don't really think many people will be using the macro, but it's nice to have. It doesn't have a telephoto lens, although you may be tricked in the software because it still has that that option to zoom in, but that's just to zoom in on the primary sensor. It's actually surprisingly pretty good though, not opposed to it. All of the images that I took on the 2X, I was pretty impressed with. So overall in the primary lens, I would say it's pretty good. It's just not excellent, especially when you compare it to like the 11 Pro or the S20 Ultra, but obviously those phones are significantly more expensive. In terms of video is also not excellent. I feel like stabilization and movement is still a little bit off and needs a little bit of improvement, but this feels like a huge step up over last year's OnePlus 7T. So I am happy to say that. But continuing with this theme of kind of falling slightly short of where the flagships are at, this phone does not have an IP68 rating for water resistance, and it also does not have wireless charging. So there is some speculation that this phone actually is water resistant, but they just didn't want to pay for the rating. But that obviously makes me wary to test that, so I'm not going to. But wireless charging is definitely not here. And I would be more bummed about that, but this phone comes with in the box 30-watt fast wire charging, which I'm psyched on. So that is definitely really amazing, and although it's a little bit of a bummer not to see wireless charging, I feel like that's an easy trade-off to make. The actual battery life is also pretty good. It's a 4,300 milliamp hour battery, and I'm consistently getting all-day use with it. So I actually end most days with like 10 to 20% left, which is a really positive thing because my normal use of the phone is relatively heavy. I'm listening to a ton of music through the awesome, clear, and crisp speakers, and I'm watching a ton of videos, I'm replying to a lot of emails, I'm on social media a lot, so I kind of put this phone through its paces, and it handles it, and it is there for me in terms of battery life. And if I wanted even better battery life, I could bump down to 60 hertz, and I would maybe do that if I needed my phone to last like a day and a half or 2 days. But at one day, I'm content with the 90 hertz and the battery life that I'm getting. So thumbs up on that front as well. So 2 months into using this phone, I'm still really happy with it. It gets so many things right. I came into this review with really high expectations, and normally that's like an absolute disaster scenario because you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. But OnePlus pulled through again. That said though, this phone does not feel as special or exciting to me as other OnePlus phones have felt. And I think that that's really a testament to other manufacturers kind of catching up in this mid-range market. And I think it's also a testament to OnePlus actually, because they created a phone that has me even more excited, the OnePlus 8 Pro. This phone is about 29% more expensive, but it packs a lot of features that the OnePlus 8 doesn't have. And it's definitely worth your attention. So if you want to check out the OnePlus 8 Pro, if you're more interested in getting some extras and also a much better camera experience, it might be worth watching this video, which is my full review of the OnePlus 8 Pro. But if you're just looking for a phone with a beautiful display that's also fast, the OnePlus 8 has your name written all over it. Thanks so much for watching this video. I really appreciate your time. It would mean a lot if you enjoy tech content, if you subscribe to the channel and turned on the bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.